I'm recording in progress, and I am going to now go to more and share live on Facebook. We are going live. Not quite yet. Hold your horses, as they say. Share within a group. Which group?
Let me just shut my door while you're doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so start untimely digging on something. They probably were.
We're preparing to live stream. So I think it always does that on Facebook. It says preparing to live stream, and I think it actually sends you live before you even know it. So welcome, Julie. I think we are live, but I am just going to double check with my other, because I seem to have frozen my. Can you hear me?
I can hear you okay.
Okay. Can you see me okay? Is everything great? Okay.
All good from this end.
Perfect. I think we're all good to go. Oh, there we go. Even better. Just to let people know exactly what it is that you do for a living, your doggy is making it very clear.
And as with all animal communication, you can ask them to do things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do what you ask. That is the perfect example there, right there.
Exactly. Maybe you just wanted to have a little bit of a mention on the live.
He's normally quite opinionated, yes, but we've got builders in starting today and no extension, so obviously he's a little bit unsettled because they're coming in and out, and he's not quite sure what's going on. He spent most of the morning with his nose stuck through the gate just watching. Finally comes in and settles down, and then they're knocking at the door, so he's off again.
Okay.
But he thinks it's his job to know what's going on.
Well, that's a very loving job for him to do. So talking about jobs, tell us what yours is. I'll let you explain in much better detail than I ever could.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So at the moment we have Ollie with us, who is a collie cross golden retriever with possibly some Belgian Shepherd in too. And he came to us just over a year ago, and he was supposed to just stop for a couple of weeks while he was finding his forever home, but he's still with us, and we are now his forever home. So he's gone. Oh, we'll be okay. Just 1 second, I'll shut the door. All the joys of life, right? So he came over from Italy, and he was supposed to go to a home in Yorkshire. The family had paid to adopt him, and he was there for 4 hours, and they decided actually they didn't really want him. And this was obviously in the middle of lockdown, so he'd had a 5-hour drive in the back of a van to come over here, been left with this family. They couldn't cope with him and rang the rescue and said, well, if you don't come and pick him up, we're just going to pop him out on the streets. And
no way.
And he wasn't reactive, but he was incredibly scared. And he'd been found on the streets and then lived in a compound. He was 8 months old when all this was happening. So when he came over, and suddenly he was that 5-day journey, back of a van, and then into this home. He'd never been in a house before. He'd never really had good experiences with people before. And he'd got this family with children, I think, that just wanted to be all over him and fuss him. And it was just overwhelming. He just couldn't cope. So he hid in the corner and was shaking, wouldn't go near them, and probably made a right old mess in the house as well, because he obviously hadn't been house trained. And unfortunately, because he's so good looking and so handsome, people fall for his looks without really knowing. So they wanted this beautiful dog, but didn't want all the baggage that came with him. And so somebody pointed him out to me and said, did I know anybody that could help? So I saw him and I just fell in love. and he just looked so sad and so pitiful and so vulnerable. And I rang out. I was actually at the client's at the time, and there's a very good friend of mine, this client, and I was showing her, and she said, "Oh, you've got to help." So I rang out, and I found myself saying, "We'll take him in." And he said, "Right, I'll drive him down from Yorkshire. We'll be with you tonight." And then, of course, I had to ring my very loving and understanding partner and say, "We've just got ourselves a dog." Which really I should have spoken to him first, but you know, sometimes these words come out of my mouth and I'm just agreeing to these things and then thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this has all gone a bit a bit awry. So I rang him, and we'd not long, our previous dog had not long passed away, so we were still very much in the grieving process. We were thinking of moving, so on paper we weren't really in the right place to take on anything else, but I rang my partner and said, let's just have him for a couple of weeks to help him out. I sent him the photos, and his heart melted too. And he came to live with us, and it took us months to get him settled. He wouldn't come in and out of doorways, so at 10 o'clock at night we were leaving the doors open. We were sitting in another room because if he saw us he'd run back outside again. We couldn't put collar on him for a week. The harness took probably 3 or 4 weeks, so we couldn't walk him. And it was just a case of being very patient. And I think I'd already trained as an energy healer. So I was doing some energy healing with him and just sitting very gently, sending him lots of love and working on him. And I think then I really wanted to communicate. I was receiving messages from him and pictures and images and emotions and feelings. And I realised that they were coming from him. And I'd been receiving this from other horses and dogs I've been working on anyway. So the whole thing was building up into quite a big message for me. And I'm thinking, animal communication, is it a thing, or am I just really losing the plot? Is it, you know, these messages come through, are they genuinely from the animals, or is it me? What's going on? So I did some research, and I went on a 2-day workshop with P. Horsley, who's an amazing animal communicator, and she absolutely convinced me that it was a thing and I wasn't going mad. And I loved the way she works, and the information we were receiving left me in no doubt whatsoever that it was a thing and I could do it. So I did a bit more research, and then I did a year-long animal communication course, because with me, if I want to do something, I want to do it properly. And I did a year-long course with Sarah Jane LeBlanc, and I finished that earlier this year, and I'm now actually going to be one of her coaches starting later on this year, which is a wonderful compliment to receive, because when your tutor thinks you're good, then you know you must be pretty good. So I'll be doing that as well. But with that course with Sarah Jane, we really did dive deep into the whys behind the behaviour, the emotions, the fear associations. And when I blended that with the energy healing as well, that could actually remove what was going on for these animals and give the guardians a better understanding of why the dog was behaving like that and what they were feeling and what was going on for them, it just managed to change everything. And you know, when you've got a reactive dog and you can tune in and you can feel whether it's excitement or fear, and try and get to the root cause of it, and work with the energy to bring those cortisol levels down and the energy levels down, so that they're not going into that fight or flight response quite so quickly. That calming, and then you can work out the whys. The guardian's got a better idea of what's going on, and then we can put together a plan of action, if you like, to help them with it and support them, rather than just expect them to behave as we want them to behave, because they're sentient beings. They've got their own, you know, emotions and thoughts and ideas of what's right or wrong, and sometimes they don't think that there's anything wrong with what they do. It's natural behaviour, but it's our interpretation of it that causes an issue. So yeah, so that's what I did, and this is where I am. So I now do animal communication and kind of like a mediation service to just try and build that relationship better, and resolve any issues and keep dogs, horses and cats in their homes. Yeah.
Brilliant. And tell me a little bit about you then, in your terms of your background. How did you get to be where you are today? Where did you used to work?
There's a long story. I'll try and keep it as concise as I can. I used to be corporate, so I used to do HR and operations management, and I liked to work for startup companies. So I like to go in and help them start from day one and build up that was my thing. And I lived in Yorkshire, and I wanted to move back down south because I'd got divorced and my children had left home, and I was just up there cold and miserable. It's time for a change. So I came back down south and I worked for the Company of Animals, which is a company that I've known for years, and I've wanted to work for them for a very long time. So I came down with my dream job. And it was all fantastic until I went on a first date, and I literally fell at the feet of this man, literally fell at his feet, broke my leg in 3 places, dislocated my ankle, and had 2 weeks in hospital. They did an operation to put a metal rod in my leg to help with the breaks, and I got compartment syndrome. And they had 3 minutes to just get me back down and sort my leg out, otherwise it would have been amputated. So I was literally 3 minutes between losing my leg. And I remember coming round from the anaesthetic and signing the consent form, and then waking up and my leg was still there, but they'd had to cut it open from knee to ankle either side. So the nerve damage was extensive. And I hadn't managed to sew it back up because of the swelling. So I'm there in hospital, and I've got a catheter in, and I can't move. And I'd only been living down in Bagshot for 3 months, so I was still kind of quite new to the area. This man who I'd gone on this date with, he came to see me every day for 2 weeks in hospital.
Wow, that's what my next question was going to be, was how was the date?
Well, so he came to see me, he bought me everything I needed for a stay, even the phone charger, and he paid for the TV to be on, and he bought me all the, night dresses and dressing gowns and deodorant and everything.
How lovely.
And collected all that up for me. Yeah, and so we had 2 weeks of me not looking my best in a hospital bed, and he just came to visit and we chatted, and so we got to know each other really well. And of course, when you're sent home from hospital, you think that's it, the bones have healed and the stitches came out, and I was going to be fine, but it never actually healed. And so 3 months later, when I found that I still couldn't feel the bottom of my foot, I was still in pain. The leg was still swelling up and changing colours, and there was every kind of pain going on that you could think of. It was like a pain festival there. So it felt like there was barbed wire around the top of my leg. My foot just felt like it had constant hot water tipping all over it, but then I'd get a ice cold feeling going down the middle of it, and I couldn't touch it. It was horrendous. And eventually I was diagnosed with chronic regional pain syndrome, which is quite rare. And I was told that I would never recover, that this is it. You've got this, there's no cure, here's your wheelchair, here's your morphine, we'll send you on pain management courses, but you've got to learn to live with it. And of course, you go down that road because you don't know any different, and you see doctors and they give you painkillers and they don't work, so they give you more, and then you get side effects, so you get more medicine to deal with the side effects. And before I knew it, they hadn't helped with the pain, but they just made me into a zombie, so I just didn't care. And I've lost days and weeks and months of those years where I just can't remember what I did. And on a good day, I'd be able to get up and sit downstairs for an hour before going back to bed.
Wow.
And, of course, along with this, you've got all the other mental health issues that are going on. So, you're suddenly, I'm there, I can't look after myself, I can't drive, I can't wash, I can't dress. And this very lovely man said to me I just couldn't work, and they tried so hard to keep my job open for me. They reduced my hours to a couple of days a week, and I still couldn't function. I was on the meds and I couldn't drive, and it was just not working. So they had to let me go. So I've got my house in Yorkshire, which was rented out, fortunately, so that covered the mortgage, but I couldn't afford the rent on where I was living in Bagshot, and I couldn't drive and I couldn't earn any money. And this very lovely man who'd stuck with me through all this said, come and live with me and I'll look after you until you're better, and we will find a way forward. So I moved in with him, and he did everything he could to help me. And I had about 8 years where I was just stuck in this cycle of in pain and depression and chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and you name it, they threw that label and that diagnosis at me, and more painkillers, until eventually enough was enough. And I did a 2-week pain management course, and one of the doctors there was fantastic, and he said to me, you do know that you don't have to take all this medicine. If it's not working, if you're not getting a success rate, a relief of pain that outweighs the side effects, don't take it. And that was a real light bulb moment for me. And he said, only 30%, they only need to get a 30% success rate at trials to get these drugs to market, and they were never designed for what's wrong with you anyway. So that was it. I thought, I've got to come off of all these and see what I'm left with. And the doctor wasn't very supportive or helpful. And I found a lovely man called Chris Boardman, who works at Rosedale Clinic in Reading. And I went to see him, and he does acupuncture and all sorts of other sort of holistic healing, some of which I've no clue about. And at the point, I didn't care, I just needed help. And when he saw me and I gave him my big long list of everything that was wrong, he's like, oh, rubbing his hands together, you're an interesting case, I can't wait to get my hands on you. And he was very, bless him. And I went to see him pretty much every week for about 18 months. And his treatment was amazing, because it didn't start off with healing the leg, it started off with other stuff. So things that I'd suffered from for years just disappeared. And I used to get sinus infections and hay fever and colds, and they just went. And Raynaud's I used to suffer from, and that just went. And my whole body started, my whole body just started to repair and recover and fix all these little things.
What was he doing for you then? Were you having to amend things in your life in order for that to happen, or was it just the work that he was doing?
It was the start of it was work that he was doing, but that then gave me the right mental attitude to make the other changes I needed, because it's an all-round care, and you know your body's designed to heal itself. So if you can feed it the right food and you can take care and not let the stress get in, all of those things, when you put them together, make such a massive difference. But I wasn't in the mindset to make those changes. You know, you sit at home, we were in a cul-de-sac of 10 houses, and I used to see everybody go to work and everybody go to school, and it was just me sat in the house on my own day after day. So then the depression, and so you comfort eat, and then you can't exercise, and you get that downward spiral. And he helped stop that and start to reverse that and lift things. So my mindset changed, and I started to, my energy levels started to come up. And he did acupuncture, and he did bioresonance, and he put me on some kind of mat thing with amethysts in that I used to lay on, and he gave me some little herbal remedy drops to take. And he just threw everything at me that he could. And we worked out each week what worked, what hadn't, and what we needed to change. And some days I'd lay there with like 60 odd needles in my head right down my back. And other times it was only 2 or 3. And I just knew to trust him. I didn't really ask him any questions. I just lay there and helped me and trusted in what he did. And I think that played an important part as well, because if you've got the mindset, I want to heal, I want this to go, then you're sending all the right signals down and all the right chemicals and everything else you need for that process to work. And I know a lot of people say the placebo effect and they don't like it, but I love the placebo effect.
I agree.
It's to me, it's the best thing ever, and that alone can sometimes really make a difference. But his work he did gave me a lot more energy. It changed my mindset. It lifted that depression, and that was enough for me to then start helping myself. And then from there on, I was introduced to Reiki, and the lovely Kate Arbuckle, who some of you may know, she did a couple of Reiki sessions on me, but I was still really very skeptical of energy healing at the time. I wasn't sure it, I couldn't really understand it, but I did it. And then from there, I kind of found out more about energy healing and the different types of modalities. So I went and tried them to see how I felt about them. And the ones I liked, I learned. And again, it's about collecting up all the different types, because to me, there's no one that's right and there's no one that's wrong. It's about finding the one that really resonates with you, that you feel comfortable with, that you believe in, and using that one, or even taking different elements from each type. You find what works for you. And it doesn't matter if anybody says, well, you can't do it that way, you have to do it this way. That's no, you find the way that works for you, whether that's a bit of Reiki or a bit of cellular healing and Atlantean healing, and I've done quite a lot. So I will now use on me whatever I need. And by learning them, because I know with energy healing, you can really have some miracle results. You can have 2 or 3 sessions and feel a difference in a lot of things straight away. And I love it. but that doesn't always work. And when you've had something for 7 or 8 years, you can't expect it to be gone in an hour and a half. It's just because it's complex and there's so many layers. You've got the emotional side of it as well as the physical, and you have to dig deep to find those roots to lift them out. But I knew that financially I couldn't afford to keep going to see somebody every week for a few more years, because it just wasn't practical. So I learned the modalities myself and did some self-healing. And even now I still do my self-healing, and I'm still finding things that are being lifted and removed, and it's working in all sorts of ways to just, my whole attitude has changed. And physically, I haven't been to the doctor since 2014 because I've just not had anything wrong with me where I've needed to go, which is quite good. But
amazing.
It is. And I think when you have that desire to heal and you work with somebody who has the desire to heal you, it's the most amazing combination. And it might not happen in the way you expect, and it might not happen in the time frame you give it, but you have to trust that it's going to where it's needed, and it's peeling away all those layers until it can lift out that root and then recover from there. So so it's been quite a long journey. Massive
journey. And you know, I know myself from having illness that you get sort of stuck in a rut, and it's very hard to pull yourself out of that rut, but there has to be a real push and a desire to change first before you can even go and see and seek help. So you know, that in itself is a testament to yourself, to your bravery to want to push, and to, because it can be very easy to stay stuck.
It is. And I think and one of my big things at the moment, and probably always has been, is to work out why people get stuck and what it is. Because there was at one point where the doctor was giving me some injections into my toe, and then he said it was a lidocaine infusions, and he said we'll do 3, and he did the first one and it started to help, and I thought, oh, actually I feel all right about this. This was before I'd done all the holistic approach. And then on the second one, it all went horribly wrong, and he couldn't get the needle in, and I was having a panic attack, and my leg was swelling up, and it was all just horrible. And so I didn't go for the third one. Now I've got some experience and some clarity and some knowledge. I can look back on that, and I can see that there was a bit of me that was frightened to heal. It didn't want it to work. And that alone is a scary thought, because if you'd asked me at the time, and even now, I'm desperate to get better. I cannot live this life. The thought of accepting and being like that forever was enough to send me flying out the window, taking an overdose or something, because the pain was that bad. So I couldn't acknowledge that there was a bit in me that actually didn't want to get better. But I think it's a combination of, your mind can't see the future, it can only go by on past experience. And when I thought about me moving forward and getting another job and living a normal life, because I couldn't see that pain and the exhaustion and all the failures, failures that I felt at the time when I couldn't work and I couldn't do, it wouldn't let that go. So it's kind of like your self-preservation part of you is wrapping its arms around you, but then you can't do that because you're going to get hurt, and we can't have you getting hurt. And it will just up the ante. The more you try and fight with it, the more the pain came on. It's like, no. So the fact that the fear of failure and the mental fear seemed to outweigh the physical pain was really quite a scary thought. And it's something that it's only on the last couple of years I've been able to acknowledge and look at and see that bit of me. And that's the bit that I think that we as healers and doctors and anybody, it's buried so deep in our self-conscious, and because it's there to protect us, it's so hard to remove. So when you see healers saying, well, I'd like to heal them, but they don't really want to get better, they absolutely do want to get better. Yes, but there's a bit of them that they can't get to that's preventing it. And that fascinates me. That really does. I think
we're on a par with that same feeling of, wanting to help people to shift from that part that's there are in the subconscious, to allow for that to move, to then allow for once that shifts, then everything happens very easily, and it's it's almost like magic, really, because it doesn't really matter what modality it is that you use, eventually it will work because that part has shifted. So it's we're all energetic beings, and we all work within the energetic field. So if you shift something within that field, something has to change. It's just
absolutely. And I've had another example of it recently, where I woke up and my finger was really swollen and really painful for no reason. I didn't pull it. I couldn't think of anything I've done to it. It was just swollen and it wouldn't bend. So I thought, right, I'll do some healing on it. And as I was healing it, I could almost see like a barrier around it, like it had been popped over in a glass thing, and the energy was bouncing off. And I'm thinking, that's a bit weird. So I spoke to some friends and colleagues of mine who are really good healers, and they treated it for me and they couldn't shift it. So I thought, right, I've got to look into this and find out what's going on. So I literally sat there, had a conversation with my finger, or the pain in my finger, what's going on? And the message I got back was, well, you're being more visible, you're putting yourself out there, and especially with the animal communication, because it's such an area full of scepticism, and you almost feel like you have to prove to the guardian that you can actually do it. So there's a lot of pressure to kind of get it right. And I was doing carriage driving, and then I'm about to take an assessment test. So I've got that coming up too. And my finger and pain in my finger was going, well, actually, you've got an opt-out clause here. I can really accelerate this. Like, you can have CRPS in your finger if you want. And then you won't have to face that fear. You won't have to go and put yourself out there and risk failure. And you won't have to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't really want this. And so I'm saying I don't want it, but it's not going. And my finger is still, it's about 3 months now. It's been like this, and it's still sitting there. And I'm
I wonder what it would be then to shift that slightly. I wondered if you'd like to do a little bit of an exercise now.
Absolutely.
To check in, because part of the reason that I am interviewing people is to allow them to come into their feelings. And sitting with the feelings for me has been profoundly beneficial and has helped me to shift. And it's a continual ongoing process for me to get to do that. But it's a journey, but it's one that I highly recommend everybody go on, because we don't tend to just sit and listen to what our feelings are. So if you wanted to now, just to shut your eyes and just go into that nice, calm, centered space. Just breathe nice and deeply. And just ask yourself, how are you feeling in this particular moment? And you can share that with me if you want to, or if you want to keep that, you can keep that to yourself.
No, I'm happy to share. It's when I'm sat here and this finger zinged to life as we were talking.
Okay.
And it's just, and I'm okay with it now, because I'm like, I know you're there, and you think you're there as a safety net, and thank you for being there, but I'm not ever going to actually need to use you. And one day you will realize that and just fade away.
Okay. And how about just sitting with that right here, right now, and not engaging your brain with that, but just to feel into that finger. Just feel the emotion that comes up. And maybe there's another area in your body where you is now also presenting itself, or maybe not. Maybe it's still surrounded that finger, but what?
Yeah, it's still in the finger, and it's just like waves of, and it does feel like protection. It's just waves of protection, and they're very gentle now. There's no it's not violent or painful like it was when I first discovered it. I don't feel like I'm having a fight with it anymore. It feels very much like an acceptance thing now.
Okay. As I check in with you,
yeah,
I can feel a certain layer of anxiety with this. And it's coming up for me around throat area.
Okay. Shoulders, possibly.
Just sit and breathe in. And try and just engage with the feeling.
I can feel it in my throat now.
And try not to come to any judgment or story behind this. There doesn't need to be a story. There doesn't need to be an explanation. It just is a feeling, and that's feeling is there just to be acknowledged, accepted, and welcomed. Sometimes it can be hard with a more painful feeling to welcome it. Our instinct is to push away, to move away, to be separate from, to be distant. But actually, when you can sit with that feeling and really feel comfortable within that feeling, embrace it, welcome it in. How does it feel in your throat at the moment?
It almost feels like the physical bit is like you're coming down with a sore throat. The emotion is anxiety. Yeah.
So if you sit with that anxiety, just to allow that anxiety to come up. And imagine, in whatever way works visually for you, to imagine yourself embracing it and bringing anxiety towards you. It's like hugging a child and really welcoming and embracing and feeling and nurturing.
You can feel that moving down to the heart.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as I said that, I have actually got my hand directly over the heart. It feels very loving to be nurturing this anxiety, just to...
Yeah, it feels like it's just all found a place to snuggle up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now if you breathe into your throat again.
Oh, that's clear.
And so let's come in now. There's still a little bit there, still a little bit that can just be accepted and warmed to and embraced and loved. And with that, I'm feeling a shift into another emotion. Can you feel another emotion rising with that?
It's almost like an excitement, like an adrenaline thing. I like to think it's excitement, not fear.
And if you focus your attention onto your finger,
That's not got any pain coming through it. It still feels swollen. And the bend isn't quite there. that those pain waves of subsiding.
So you're saying at the end there's a feeling of it not being there, is that right? Is that what I heard correctly?
Yeah, the pain's subsiding. It's comes in waves, and then each wave is like the tide going out. So each wave is just not quite as strong.
So just welcome those waves in. Again, that's brought in, I can feel that anxiety with the waves coming up. That anxiety feels straight back in the throat again. The thought of embracing feels tough with this. It feels...
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, we've just witnessed and felt that the embracing helped to shift. So with that embracing now, we can really sit with that finger and just warm to it and embrace it and feel and acknowledge any pain and really acknowledge that anxiety, the fear that's driving that anxiety to be back in that place where you once were. Because the emotions are still catching up with that tremendous journey. How are you feeling right now?
A lot calmer than I was. But you can, yeah, that when that anxiety hits, it's deep, isn't it? Deeper than you,
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
And it is hard to embrace because you kind of, I almost feel embracing it means you're going to bring it on and grow it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, all you are doing is allowing for it to be released.
So you have to bring it in to let it go, don't you?
It's about acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big, you've explained the whole of your journey, and that was a lot of suffering.
Mm.
And it's just about acknowledging that suffering that you have been through. And with that suffering has come growth. And learning and self-compassion. Okay, if you're feeling comfortable, I'll just get you to take a breath and come back.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for letting me let me come inside on your journey with you. But I felt that there's still a lot of acknowledgement of that journey, and it has been a huge change to your life, and there's still sadness that needs to be, there's still a grieving of that loss of the life that you could have had within those years that wasn't there, and that you weren't able to be there. And just an acknowledgement of that, I think, it's still very, that's what I feel coming up is just, okay, I acknowledge the fear, I embrace the fear. It's tough to do that, and I understand that myself with my own journey. It's there's always a feeling of, oh, what if it comes back? What if I'm going to be back to that level of suffering? Because nobody ever wants to go back to that dark place again. And so just acknowledge that, bring it in. And as you were saying, you felt that before. You explained it to me a few months back as well. It's just being with that emotion and allowing it to, not pushing it away, which is what we all do. It's our most normal, it's a most normal reaction and response, is not to feel. And so part of what I'm trying to do is to help people to feel and to understand, actually, when you feel, it's great. Because you can really feel it, and it's okay, and it's safe, and it's good.
Yeah, and I think because I spent so many years disassociating myself from the emotions and the physical pain, because I had to, it was the only way to cope with it.
Absolutely.
So to now try and bring that back in, it's quite tough.
It is. It's hugely tough. So I mean, that's why I myself have been on a journey with having others help me do that process, because it can feel like you don't want to be able to go there yourself. It's too tough. It feels really painful. But when you're with somebody else, you realize that actually you go through, if you fully embrace an emotion, it takes 45 seconds to shift into another emotion.
Wow.
And that is nothing. But when you're in it, it can feel like a year.
It does. And it sucks you, doesn't it, when those negative emotions come in, and that downward spiral, it's like a black hole, isn't it? And you can, when you have awareness like we do, you can see yourself going down there. And self-healing is great, and I'm a big advocate of self-healing, because there's nothing more powerful than you having control. But sometimes you do need that extra support, and that someone viewing it from a different angle, or even using a different modality than you do, can really kind of help dig up those roots, can't they? It's amazing what we're capable of, isn't it? And our bodies.
It really is, absolutely. And I've just, I'm I love doing the work. I love being able to get to those emotions. I love being able to have a good old scream and a shout, because it's not natural for me to do that in my normal world. I wouldn't be angry, but when I do it in a therapeutic way, it's fabulous, because it's such a great release. It's like, right, let's go to something else now. We can go into joy and laughter and fun. And so is there anything else today that I could talk about? Yes, I think there is, actually. I wanted you to share what's coming up for you. I know there's a couple of workshops that you are running. I wondered if you could explain about what they are and when they are and how people can join.
Yes, of course. I have an Angelic Reiki, because I'm an Angelic Reiki teacher, master. And the reason I chose to teach Angelic Reiki is because it is, of all the modalities I've learned, it is the easiest one to learn, and the easiest one to do. So, if you're kind of taking a step into all this holistic world and working out how energy works and how you can help, but you're busy, there's so many women, especially, who have their older parents that are struggling, and then they've got either teenagers or young children, children with ADHD, autism, so they're kind of really sandwiched in the middle. And with Angelic Reiki, when you learn it and when you attune to it, you don't have to think about anything. You can sit in your chair and do it, and you can do a self-healing in 10 minutes. You can do a distant healing in 10, 15 minutes. If you do it hands-on, 20 minutes to half an hour, the absolute most. But you don't have any symbols to remember. You don't have any rituals to go through. And as you're doing it, you're getting a cleansing yourself. So you because you're just channeling, that you're not using your own energy. So you feel fantastic afterwards. I could sit and heal people all day, on loop, because I feel great afterwards, because I'm not using my energy and my emotions aren't involved, and you come in and you do it. And also, you're not deciding where the energy goes. So if you've got somebody with multiple issues, you don't have to think about, oh, do I need to work on that chakra? Do I need to do that? You know, you've got intuitive people who are very well, you know, tuned in and can trust their intuition. But a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, are not sure, and oh, am I getting a sign? Do I need to do this? Should I do that? And all that worry can cloud and block. So when you do Angelic Reiki, you are literally channeling and you're blasting them with energy, and it's going to wherever it's needed, and it sorts everything out, and you don't need to give it a second thought. So it's great for if you're really busy and you haven't got time, but you're being pulled in all directions by family members. So that's why I love to teach that. It is the easiest one to do. And the workshops are 2.5 days, and you have the most beautiful cleansings, and we do the attunements, and we teach you all the different ways to do it.
And whereabouts is it?
This is in Avebury, so it's by the Avebury stones in the Henge Circle, and we are literally right in the middle of all those stones. So the energy down there is beautiful. And I'm on hand once you've done the course. I don't just walk off and leave you to it. I'm here. So if you've got any questions or you want to go over it or practice, you just message me, and we can either do a Zoom practice or I can talk to you. So I don't like people doing workshops and going off and then going, oh my God, what do I do? Where do I start? It's very much, I'm here for you. So we've got the Angelic Reiki, and that's on the 28th to the 30th of October this year. And I've got, I think, 4 places left on that one, because I like to keep my groups really small. There'll never be more than 8 people, so that we've got the time to do it gently and properly and slowly. And you can ask all sorts of questions. So I'm doing that, and I've also got an animal communication workshop coming up on the 1st of October, and that's just 1 day. And that's really designed just for people who want to have a better connection and relationship with their own animals. So as I said, if you've got a cat that's maybe bringing in mice and leaving them all over your house, or bits of dead bird everywhere, or it doesn't come home, or refuses to go to the loo in its cat litter, whatever, then you can connect in with your cat to help resolve those problems, find out why they're doing what they're doing and what you can do to help them. If you've got a dog and you're struggling with reactivity or any issues at all, or you want to know a bit more about what it's been through, if it's a rescue dog, it can help with that. And horses as well, because I'm a horsey person. So I do a separate horse and rider program where I work with both, so that's completely separate. But the animal communication is just for you to learn how to tune into your animal, and you can use all your senses to do it, and it just helps your relationship with them, and help them fit in better with your family. And you can. And
how long does that workshop last?
That workshop's 10 till 5, so it's just 1 day.
Okay.
And you have a little workbook which I have just had printed, the tuning chat workbook. So in here we've got absolutely everything that's going on in the workshop. So you've got a book to take home with you that goes through we've done, and then at the back there's all the journal pages, so you can write down your conversations with your animal and just keep a record to see how you're progressing, which is also a good way to look back and see how successful you've been, because sometimes when we do it we lose our confidence. So if you've written what you've got right, you can look back and read that, and that gives you the confidence to carry on. But again, after the workshop I'm here, and I will have a chat to anyone at any time to help them with their animals, whether they've done the course or not.
So we can put all of the details of those 2 in the chat, and also put a link to your website as well. If you can send me the details, and we can put it in yourself, so people can have access to give you a call and book appointment with you, or maybe join your courses. And thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. This is now the second time we've chatted to each other, but the foot is the shoes on the other foot, the hat's on the other head, or whatever it is. So you're still doing your chats, and what are your chats called? To have a tea and a chat or something? I can't remember.
Yes, my teapot talks are put on hold at the moment, because as you heard earlier on, we've got the builders started today to do our extension in our house. So all that is just going to be put on hold until the build's finished, because otherwise I'm going to have so much noise.
Okay. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
They will be coming back again, but once we've got our
You've got to have got that extension done. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with the extension. I hope it goes
you.
smoothly. And thank you for coming along today. Really lovely to chat to you.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. I could talk to you for hours every day.
And
It's
ditto,
wonderful.
likewise. We
Thank
should
you.
be in more regular contact because, yeah, we
Absolutely.
have a lot in common. So it's
We
really
do.
lovely to chat to you.
Yeah.
Take care.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.